This video covers the questions on homework number 8. The first two topics are on consecutive integers. Let's start with level 1. This problem states the lengths of three sides of a triangle in centimeters are consecutive odd integers. If the perimeter is 45 centimeters, find the value of the shortest of the three sides. Let's draw a quick sketch of this problem. We have a three-sided triangle, and we know that the sides are three consecutive odd integers. Remember, the first integer is always n. And if you have consecutive odd integers, then that means you need to skip over a number and get to the next odd integer. So the next integer would be n plus 2, and the third one would be n plus 4. So we know that the perimeter is 45 centimeters. So side number 1 plus side number 2 plus side number 3 has to equal 45 centimeters. So these are the translations for sides 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to replace these markings with the first side, the second side, and the third side. Once I figure out what n is equal to, then I'll know the length of the shortest of the three sides. So 3n plus 6 equals 45. So the length of the shortest side is 13. Let's try another one. The sum of three consecutive integers is 27. Find the value of the greatest of the... For this question, they're talking about three consecutive integers. So when you are consecutive only, that means you skip count by once. So if I have 3, that would be n plus 1, and n plus 2. The sum of all three is equal to 27. Solve for n, and then we can find this length of the greatest side, which would be this one. So the first number is 8. The second number would be 8 plus 1, and the third number would be 8 plus 2. So the value of the greatest of the three is 10. All right, let's try this one. The length and width of a rectangle are consecutive integers. So that means the length and the width are n and n plus 1. The perimeter of the rectangle, so you need to bring this formula to the problem yourself. The perimeter of a rectangle is twice the length plus twice the width. If the perimeter is 86 inches, that means the p can be replaced with an 86. Find the length and the width. So we need to replace the letter L and the letter W with our values over here. So 86 is equal to 2 of the lengths, which is n, plus 2 of the widths, which are n plus 1. We're going to compute this distribution here. We're going to combine like terms, and then we're going to solve for n. So the length is 21, and the width is 1 more than that, or 22 inches. Let's submit the answer. All right, one more. This time, the length and the width of a rectangle are consecutive even integers. So we'll call the length n, and the next consecutive even integer after that would be n plus 2. The perimeter of the rectangle is 84. So remember, you need to bring the perimeter formula of a rectangle to the problem yourself. If the perimeter is 84, then that is a replacement for p. Our replacements for L and W have to contain the same letter, so we're going to use our translations over here. 2 lengths and 2 widths. Distribute and combine like terms, Oops, that's supposed to say 2. Subtract 4 from both sides, and solve for n. So if the length is 20, if the length is 20, then the width is going to be 2 more than that, or 22. These next questions seem to be of the same level, so let's move on to section 2. The sum of an integer and 4 times the next consecutive odd integer is 53. Find the value of the lesser integer. Alright, so there's a couple of things going on here, but first you have to pick what type of integer pattern you need. Is it the consecutive integers, or is it a consecutive even or odd situation? And so as I'm reading here, when I get to the word consecutive, I see it's odd. That's this blue pattern, because if you go every odd number, you skip by 2's. So now let's see how many of these numbers we need. The sum of an integer and 4 times the next consecutive odd integer is 53. That sounds like we have 2. We have the first integer and the second integer. The next thing we need to know is that we are summing them together. So n and n plus 2, but they also said they wanted 4 times that next integer. So we're going to put some parentheses here to show times, and we're going to put a 4 in the front because it says 4 times. They told us it was equal to 53, and then they asked us to find the value of the lesser integer. So all we need to know is n. So we're going to distribute first, then we're going to combine like terms, then we're going to subtract 8 from each side, and then we're going to divide by 5. That gives n a value of 9. The next one is 11, but they only asked for the lesser integer. Let's submit our answer and try another question. Scarlett is younger than Nassim, and their ages are consecutive integers. Find Scarlett's age if the sum of Scarlett's age and 5 times Nassim's is 185. All right, let's start by taking some notes here. So Scarlett is younger than Nassim, so we've got Scarlett and we've got Nassim, and their ages are consecutive integers, so Scarlett is n and Nassim is n plus 1. Find Scarlett's age if the sum of Scarlett's age and 5 times Nassim's is 185. So I know the answer is 185. I know I'm summing them together, but I want Scarlett and 5 times Nassim's age. This is the translation. You're going to distribute and then combine. And then we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. And then we're going to divide by 6. And we're going to get Scarlett's age is 30. So Scarlett's age is 30. For this question, it says the perimeter of a rectangle is 320 feet. Find the length and width if the length is an odd integer and the width is 5 times the next consecutive odd integer. This one sounds tough, but I think we can figure it out. The perimeter of a rectangle is 320 feet. Well, first, we have to know that this is how you find the perimeter of a rectangle. And if they're telling us the perimeter is 320, then we're going to put a 320 in that P position. Now let's see what they want to know. The length and the width are odd integers, and the width is 5 times the next consecutive odd integer. So I don't know what the length is, so I'll call that n, but I do know that the width is 5 times, so that looks like this, the next consecutive odd integer, which would be n plus 2. So now what we can do is we can start erasing and replacing the information for the length and the width. So I'm going to put an n in the length position, but I'm going to put this entire piece of information into the width position. So it looks like I'll have 320 is equal to 2 times n and 2 times 5 times n plus 2. So I've got to do this distribution before I can do this one. So let's leave everything over here the same. But let's shorten this 5 times quantity n plus 2. So that would give us 5n plus 10. And now I can distribute the 2. So I'm going to have 320 is equal to 2n plus 10n plus 20. I'm going to combine like terms. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. And now I'm going to divide 300 by 12. And that gives me 25. Okay, so 25 is equal to n, which means 25 is the length. Now be careful, the width is 5 times the next consecutive odd integer, or it's 5 times 27. So the width is not 27, it's 5 times 27. So you're going to need a calculator for that and figure out that the width is 135. So the length is 25 and the width is 135. Samantha is older than Montre. Their ages are consecutive integers. Find Samantha's age if the sum of Samantha's age and 5 times Montre's age is 103. All right, let's take a look at what we've got here. Samantha is older than Montre. Their ages are consecutive integers. So that means we've got an n and an n plus 1. So that makes this Samantha, because she's older. Find Samantha's age if the sum of Samantha's age and 5 times Montre's age is 103. Well, that makes their sum n plus 1, Samantha, plus 5 times Montre is 103. So it looks like I'm going to get 6n plus 1 equals 103, or 6n equals 102. And I'm going to divide 102 by 6. And I get 17. So that means that Montre is 17, and that makes Samantha 18. Let's type that in here and check. All right, let's move on to the next topic here, which would be solving single-step literal equations, which means all of the equations have lots of letters in them. And what we want to do is isolate the letter they tell us to. So they're asking us to solve for capital A. That means this needs to be by itself. That means this needs to go away. And this is dividing by 4. The only way to remove dividing by 4 is using the inverse, which is multiplying by 4. And sometimes you can do the math, and sometimes you can't. So the answer to this would be 4 times g is equal to capital A. So we're going to type a 4g here in the box because they already typed the A equals. Let's take a look at this next one here. So they want us to solve for lowercase a this time. That means I want to keep this and get rid of that. So the only way to get rid of a minus b is to do the inverse, which is to add capital B to both sides. The inverse will make this disappear, but now we can't do the math on this side, so we leave the math. 8 plus capital B, or capital B plus 8. Doesn't matter. Again, look for the letter they want you to solve for and perform the inverse operation of anything on the same side as that letter. It should cancel out on one side and leave you with some algebra statement on the other. So we're going to get h plus 9 is equal to lowercase a. In this problem, we're solving for capital A, and capital A is multiplying letter G. The inverse of multiplying by G is dividing by G. So A is equal to 6 divided by G. You can type this using your keyboard, or you can type it using the Delta Math keyboard. 6 divided by G. Solve the following equation for f. Well, f is multiplying capital G. So this time, I'm going to divide by capital G. So f is equal to h divided by capital G. Let's take a look at the next lesson. Level 2. Solve the following for letter D. In this problem, D is multiplying 4/3. Now some people may call this dividing by 4/3, but typically we don't divide by fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to say that D is equal to 3/4 times G. D is equal to 3/4 times G. In this question, we want to isolate lowercase b. So we need the inverse of dividing by h. Now don't forget the inverse is to multiply both sides, the entirety of both sides, by letter h. So b is equal to h times the quantity d plus g cubed. You could have also split it like this, d times h and g cubed times h. I like to write less characters, so I'm going to type in my answer box the quantity h parentheses capital D plus g to the 3rd power. You can use Shift 6 to write an exponent, or you can use the Delta Math keypad. In this question, lowercase letter a is being multiplied by a quantity or a group. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, and you can divide by an entire group. So the answer is r divided by the entire quantity b minus h. So you can type in this box here, r divided by the quantity capital B minus h. In this one, we're dividing by a quantity. So the inverse of dividing is multiplying. And we're going to multiply by the entire denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 4 times b minus d. So a is equal to t times this whole quantity. So in your answer, you're going to type that in the parentheses. Just like this. Okay, last one. Solve the following equation for lowercase d. Lowercase d over here is being multiplied by 5 and q at the same time. So we're going to divide everybody, the entire side, by 5q. Now I could do it separately, but that's a lot of writing. So I'm going to write one giant division sign on the left and get d is equal to 3g cubed plus m, the whole quantity, divided by 5q. And that's how I'm going to type it in my answer box here. I'm going to type 3g cubed. And I'm actually going to type my division sign now. Whoops. 3g cubed, arrow out, division sign now. And then I'm going to go back up so that the entire numerator will be 3g cubed plus m. And I'll type 5q in the denominator. And that concludes our lesson on homework number 8.